Hello guys, and thanks for tuning in to another Jensen Media video. Today we are going to go over a few things about the soon to be released Resident Evil 3 Remake. Because there are a ton of changes in this game, even compared to the Resident Evil 2 remake. If Resident Evil 2 was a remake, then Resident Evil 3 is an entire overhaul. The game hosts so many different changes that this really is entirely a different beast altogether. So I just want to go over the changes and just what it could affect, and also at the end of the video I'm going to go ahead and address a few concerns that I do have, so I'm going to go ahead and keep that in mind as well. The first big change to this game is that it will no longer have multiple endings. Now, this was most likely due to the developers wanting to only focus on one sole narrative, and if the game is more story driven as it looks to be, maybe this was a good choice. I'm not really sure how other Resident Evil fans feel about this, and it may even get some backlash, but I don't see this as much of a big deal as one would think. We get one heavily focused driven story, and really, as long as it's really heavily focused, I'm fine with it. Speaking of story, even though we do not know all the details and what it really consists of, a lot of the characters we fleshed out compared to the original game, and I really do love that. There's a lot more attention to detail this time around with the characters. A lot more will be explained, and I do believe that we will see more backstories about everybody, and we'll have a much fuller circle by the end of the game. It's not to say the original one didn't have a great storyline already, but I believe the remake will really hone and focus in on that, which I think is a pretty good thing because, I mean, who doesn't really enjoy a good story? And if I can get some more sweet Resident Evil lore within it, I will certainly take it. Speaking of a more fleshed out stories within the game, Carlos will be playable this time around. We don't really have any specifics, but we do know it's not going to be a whole different scenario. You're just gonna control Carlos for a little bit. It's just gonna be a small section of the game, probably similar to how you played other characters in Resident Evil 2 Remake. I do like this a lot though because it does add some extra gameplay, and it most likely will add a lot more of a fleshed out story for Carlos. So I am definitely all for this. Overall, it adds extra gameplay to the game, which Resident Evil 3 probably needs, as it will not have the same replayability as 2 did. But for replayability overall, if you like multiplayer, you do not have Mercenaries mode anymore, as the developers have cut it out of the game entirely. But you do have this whole new mode called Project Resistance, which is completely new and fully fleshed out. It's pretty much a decked out multiplayer game within Resident Evil 3. It does look pretty interesting and it does look polished. It's a 1 versus 4 asymmetric game where one person is the director and adds all these zombies and monsters, and the other 4 people are survivors just trying to make their way out of this weird, hellish labyrinth. Either the director will win by killing off all 4 survivors, or the survivors will escape. It feels really similar to like a Dead by Daylight or a Friday the 13th style game, and I do think that this will add a ton of replay value to the game. I do wish it had more scenarios like Resident Evil 2 Remake, but that was never what Resident Evil 3 was about, so I'm not surprised. Overall, Project Resistance looks like a lot of fun. Next, we have the dodge mechanic, and it looks like it works pretty well, and we will surely need it, as the next and probably biggest change to the game is Nemesis. Definitely the biggest and most radical change is Nemesis and how he will work within the game. Nemesis will seemingly always be active and always hunting you around the city, which does sound pretty frightening. In the original, he would just show up during certain set pieces of the game, and eventually you learned when and where he would pop out of. With this game, it seems like it's now randomized. I'm sure there are still big set pieces here and there, but now he can also show up just anytime he wants to. He also has a ton of speed, weaponry, and his tentacles, so I really hope that dodge mechanic works really well. Even with the dodge mechanic, I can see Nemesis being a bit of an issue. I mean, he can even run and jump off walls to cut you off. And this leads to my biggest fear for the game. Now, I know a lot of people are going to criticize and say, hey, you just need to get good at the game. But if Nemesis is indeed always hunting you, always tracking your every movement, it could be a big problem. there is a difference between me being scared because I'm worried Nemesis might come around the corner, come crashing through a wall or window near me, or just overall surprising me around a corner. That sounds scary, along with hearing him scream and also his boots hitting against the ground. I am all for that. That sounds wonderfully terrifying. But the difference being the frequency. If he's a constant thing in this world, and he's always chasing and running at me, tripping me up with his tentacles to a point where I can't get much done, I'm not going to be scared, I'm just going to be simply annoyed. I want to be able to look and enjoy the environments at the same time as being scared. I want to be able to take in the atmosphere, and I can't really do that if Nemesis is always constantly hunting me. I'm hoping he doesn't frequently pop up. Like, I think Mr. X in Resident Evil 2 was a good compromise. He showed up sometimes, but a lot of the time you could actually go through the game and enjoy it. I've also read an article where Nemesis is just being a pain and the journalist just did not know how to shake him, along with not having enough ammo to take him down either. They did also say that they were thrown into the middle of the game with no indications on how any of the mechanics worked, so they could have just very well not know how to get away. Maybe they didn't know how to work the dodge mechanic, or they just weren't entirely prepared for it. So I'm gonna take that one with a grain of salt, really. It's entirely possible that the guy just didn't know what he was doing, because that's what it sounds like to me. I'm sure if you go through the game normally and you know how the dodge mechanic works, you know how everything works, you know the smart ways of taking down Nemesis, maybe it won't be so bad. That's what I'm telling myself. I'm hoping I can just enjoy the game the same ways I enjoyed the original. The original Resident Evil 3 had the perfect formula. You had Nemesis a lot of the time there, but also giving me breaks in between to ride that fine line. I am hoping somehow in the remake, Nemesis will also ride a very fine line. It just worries me a little bit. I am still greatly looking forward to this game, and I absolutely cannot wait to get my hands on the demo, and I'm surely going to go over the demo in a future video as well. I will say this, as I was making this video, there was a little more information that came out and was released, and it seemed to be mixed information. There was an article released that stated that Nemesis could actually break into safe rooms, but this information ended up being false. The person that ended up writing the original article didn't understand that the room he was in had a typewriter in it, but it was not a safe room. So he just misunderstood and thought the room he was in was a safe room. Turns out it wasn't, and Nemesis broke in, and he's like, wait a second, Nemesis can now break in safe rooms. That's not the case. He cannot break in safe rooms. This has been confirmed by Capcom. Nemesis will not come in and try to get you in the safe rooms. He will not Kool-Aid Man through the walls into a safe room. So rest assured of that at least. Anyway guys, let me know your thoughts below and feel free to leave your comments. I am always up and I am always responsive to having a good conversation about video games. So thanks for watching guys, and you have a nice rest of your day.